The thief in the market. The Spaceport market was loud and full of life. Bright lights flashed from shops and strange smells filled the air. Creatures from all over the galaxy walked past each other. Some were tall with shiny skin. Others had wings or many eyes. But nobody cared. Everyone was busy with trade, business, or travel. John, a human trader, stood near a food stall. He had just landed on this dusty moon a few hours ago. His stomach growled. The long flight had tired him out. He bought some hot food from a vendor and walked away slowly, enjoying the taste. Suddenly, a small hand grabbed the food from his hand. "Hey!" John shouted. A small figure darted through the crowd. It was fast and silent. People moved aside without noticing. John's eyes followed the thief. It was a child, an alien child, thin, dirty, and barefoot. His skin was pale purple. His clothes were torn. John's first instinct was anger, but that feeling faded quickly. The child didn't look like a common thief. He looked scared, hungry, desperate. John didn't know why, but he started to follow the child. The alien child slipped through a narrow alley between two buildings. John followed. The smell changed. It was darker, quieter. The lights from the market didn't reach here. "Kid, wait. I won't hurt you," John called out. No answer. The child looked back once. His big eyes were full of fear, but he didn't stop. John kept following. The alley led to an old broken staircase going underground. Rust covered the walls. Wires hung from the ceiling. It looked like no one had used it in years. John hesitated. This was a bad idea. He didn't know this planet. He didn't know what could be down there. But something in his heart told him to keep going. He went down. The deeper he went, the colder it became. Water dripped from the walls. The sound echoed. He could no longer hear the busy market above. Then he saw a light, very faint, like a dying candle. He moved toward it. There in a corner, the alien child sat next to a figure lying on the floor. It was a woman, maybe the child's mother. Her skin was the same pale purple. Her face looked tired, her eyes closed. She was breathing, but just barely. The child was feeding her. Not eating, just feeding her with the food he had stolen. John stood silently, watching. The boy noticed him now. He didn't run this time. He just looked up. His eyes were wide and shiny, full of tears. He held a finger to his lips, asking John not to make noise. John slowly walked closer. He crouched beside them. "It's okay," he said in a soft voice. "I won't hurt you. Is she your mother?" The child nodded. "What happened to her?" The child didn't answer. Maybe he didn't understand English. Or maybe he didn't know how to speak at all. He looked too young, maybe 6 or 7. John looked at the woman. She was very thin. Her hands shook. Her clothes were old. Her skin looked dry and cracked. She had probably not eaten for days, maybe weeks. John opened his bag. He had a protein bar inside. He offered it to the child. The boy took it, broke it in half, and gave it all to his mother. Not even a bite for himself. John felt something inside, something deep. This wasn't just theft. This was survival. He looked around. The room was part of an old underground shelter. Maybe it was used during some war or disaster. Now it was forgotten. The child spoke. Just one word. Help. John didn't know what to say. He wasn't a doctor. He wasn't rich. But he couldn't just leave. He sat down beside them. The woman opened her eyes slowly. She looked at John. Her lips moved. "Thank you," she whispered, before fainting again. Suddenly a sound came from behind. A metallic clank, like something stepping on metal. John turned around quickly. A dark shadow moved at the edge of the tunnel. Something else was down here, and it was watching them. Into the shadows, it began with a whisper, soft, shaky, and not from the child. John turned his head sharply. The sound came from the darkness behind him. A soft clink of metal. A slow breath. The kind of noise that didn't belong to any broken machine. Something else was there. His hand moved to the side of his coat, gripping the small plasma cutter he always carried. It wasn't a weapon, but it was sharp enough. If this thing got too close. The child stared into the dark tunnel, eyes wide. He clung to his unconscious mother, his tiny frame trembling. John stood up slowly, listening. No more noise. Just silence, thick, heavy, watching silence. He turned back to the child. "I need to get her help," he said quietly. "Is there a way out?" The boy didn't speak, but he pointed deeper into the tunnels. "Deeper? You want us to go that way?" John asked, surprised. The boy nodded, still pointing. John looked at the woman on the ground. She was barely breathing. Her skin looked worse now, her pulse slow. "All right," he whispered. "But we have to move, fast." He knelt and carefully lifted her into his arms. She was light, too light. Her body felt like paper and bone. The child led the way, holding a small flickering device that gave off a weak blue glow. It barely lit the floor, but it was better than nothing. They walked slowly, deeper into the underground. The air changed. It wasn't just colder, it was heavier, full of dust and old metal smells. The walls were rusted, the ground was cracked, pipes hissed overhead. John kept looking over his shoulder. He didn't know what was following them, but he could feel it. Presence, not animal, not human, watching. The boy stopped at a turn in the tunnel. He looked confused, like trying to remember something. "We need to hurry," John said. The boy suddenly grabbed John's hand and pulled him into a side tunnel, smaller, tighter, almost hidden behind a fallen beam. As they passed through, the noise returned. Slow, dragging footsteps, scraping on metal. John didn't look back. The tunnel grew narrower, but up ahead was a dim orange light. It was old emergency lighting, flickering on and off like a heartbeat. The child pointed to a corner where metal sheets were stacked like a door. John pushed through them. Inside was a small room. It smelled like oil and old air. A mattress made of rags was in one corner. Broken boxes and wires were everywhere. It wasn't safe, but it was something. John gently laid the woman down. She groaned, softly. He looked around. He had no medicine, no tools, no water. But he had to do something. "I need to get back to my ship," he said aloud. "I have supplies there." The child looked at him, eyes full of fear. He didn't want to be left. Behind John crouched down. "I'll come back, I promise. But she needs real help. I can't do it alone." The boy shook his head. Then from the far end of the tunnel came a low gurgling sound. It was close now, closer than before. John knew he couldn't leave them here. He stood up, breathing fast. "We're going together," he said. "No more running. We find a way out. Now." The boy nodded once. Then the mother, barely conscious, opened her eyes again and whispered one word in her language. John didn't understand it, but the boy did, and when he heard it, he froze in fear. He turned to John and said, "She says it's not alone." The mother's condition. The silence was broken, not by sound, but by breath. A sharp, painful breath. The alien mother gasped awake. Her body shook like something had just shocked her heart. Her eyes opened wide, glowing faintly in the dark. She stared at the ceiling as if she saw something far away, something terrifying. John knelt beside her. "Easy, easy," he said gently. "You're safe. You're not alone anymore." But she wasn't looking at him. She wasn't even looking at the room. She was looking through it. The child grabbed her hand, whispering something in his strange tongue. Her eyes blinked slowly. She turned her head and saw John, really saw him. For the first time, she didn't flinch. She didn't panic. Instead, her lips parted, dry and shaking. "Human," she said in a soft, broken voice. "You followed him." John nodded, surprised she spoke his language, even if only a little. "Yes, I followed your boy. He was hungry. stole my food. I just wanted to help. She closed her eyes, her lips curling in a weak smile. You are not like the others, she whispered. John frowned. What others? But she didn't answer. She was already slipping again, her breathing shallow, chest barely rising. John looked around. The small room was cold, full of metal junk and shadows. No food, no heat, no medicine. This wasn't a shelter, it was a cage of survival. He reached into his jacket. A small med pack was all he had. It wasn't much, just pain relief, water, gel, and a nutrient patch. He placed the patch on her neck. It hissed softly as it activated. Color slowly returned to her skin. Her breathing steadied, but only a little. The boy watched with wide eyes. He looked tired. No, more than tired. He looked empty, like he'd used every ounce of strength to keep his mother alive. How long have you been down here? John asked him quietly. The child held up 3 fingers. 3 days? The boy shook his head and pressed his hands together. Then he moved them apart, slowly, many times. 3 weeks. John felt sick. How had no one noticed them? Why had no one helped? Then, he remembered her words. You are not like the others. Something wasn't right about this place. He stood and walked to the corner, checking the hallway. Nothing moved, but that feeling, that presence, was still there, hiding, waiting. When he returned to them, the mother was awake again. She pointed, weakly at her son. His name is Naru, she whispered. John smiled at the child. Naru, that's a good name. The boy blinked slowly, then looked down. He didn't smile back. The mother reached out with trembling fingers and touched John's arm. Please, save him. John swallowed hard. I will, but then her eyes sharpened. Her voice changed, still soft but urgent. No, not just from hunger, from them. John stared at her. Them? She nodded weakly. They took our world, burned the sky, took the strong, left the weak. Her voice cracked. They hunt, survivors. Even here. Even now. John's blood turned cold. Who? Who hunts you? Her lips moved, but the word was not human. Not one he knew. It sounded like Shravkai. He didn't understand, but her face said it all. Fear. Suddenly, Naru grabbed John's hand and pulled him toward the hallway. His tiny voice whispered fast. Coming. Coming. John spun around, far down the tunnel. A red glow lit the walls. And the sound returned. Click, drag, click, drag. Not alone. Not safe. Not anymore. Danger in the depths. The walls were bleeding light, red, slow, pulsing. It didn't come from a bulb. It came from the thing crawling through the tunnels. John could feel the heat before he saw it. Not fire, but something worse, like radiation, like breath from something not meant to live here. He grabbed Naru and pulled him behind, shielding the boy with his body. The alien mother lay still, eyes half open, lips moving silently. She was too weak to run. The sound was louder now. Click, drag, click, drag. It wasn't walking. It was pulling itself. John whispered to Naru, Is there another way out? Naru pointed to the corner of the room, a broken hatch barely visible under a pile of metal scraps. John rushed to it, kicked the junk aside, and pried open the hatch. Rust fell like dust. The tunnel behind it was narrow, like a vent, just wide enough to crawl through. I'll go first, John said. Then I'll pull you both. But when he turned to grab the mother, the red light spilled into the room. The creature had arrived. It wasn't walking. It was floating, barely above the ground, its body thin, long, stretched like black wire. Its face was a mask of bone and lights. No eyes, no mouth, just a grid of red dots where a face should be. It moved like it could smell them. It tilted its head toward the hatch. Then it screeched. The sound stabbed the air. John grabbed the mother's arm and pulled her toward the vent. Naru pushed from behind, trembling but silent. The creature shot forward. John shoved her inside first, then Naru. He turned to go in last. But the creature's claw scraped the floor just inches from his boot. He slid in, heart pounding. The tunnel was tight, full of sharp metal edges and loose wires. They crawled slowly, the mother barely moving. John had to drag her inch by inch. Behind them, the creature shrieked again. Then it began smashing the walls, trying to reach them. Dust filled the vent. Every breath was hard. But then, light. Cold, blue light. John pushed the hatch open on the other end. They tumbled out into another tunnel. Bigger, cleaner. It looked like an old maintenance route, long forgotten, but safe. For now. John sat against the wall, gasping. Naru held his mother, his small hands shaking. John looked at them. "We can't stay here," he said. "It'll follow us. That thing, it knows you. It's hunting you," the mother coughed. Blood on her lips, her voice was thin. "Shravkai, machine, killers. They took our city." John frowned. "Why?" The answer came in one word: fear. She closed her eyes again. John stood up. He looked both ways down the tunnel. Left was dark, right was darker. No signs, no maps. "We go right," he said. Naru didn't ask why. He just followed. As they walked into the dark, John felt it again. That presence. The thing wasn't gone. It was waiting, and they had just stepped deeper into its nest. Escape route. The tunnel was breathing, not with wind, not with machines, but like a living thing, each wall pulsing faintly, like veins under the skin of some buried beast. John didn't trust the walls. He didn't trust the silence either. Behind them was a monster made of wires and bones. Ahead of them, something worse. The flickering emergency lights above lit only pieces of the tunnel. Pipes ran along the ceiling like ribs. The floor was wet and sticky, as if this place had been closed, off for decades, and forgotten for a reason. Naru walked close to his mother, dragging a piece of cloth under her feet as they moved. She couldn't walk anymore, only mumble words from her dreams, words that chilled the air. John paused at every turn, listening. "Are we going in circles?" he whispered. Naru shook his head. Then he pointed to a broken sign half covered in grime. It said, "Service Bay 09, emergency access only." Below it, a faded map, barely readable. John wiped it clean with his sleeve. The path ahead curved twice, then split. One way led to a dead end. The other, an old cargo exit. "Exit," John said under his breath. "That's our way out." But the floor trembled beneath their feet. Not like a quake, like a warning. They picked up the pace. Then, they heard it. Not one, not two, three more. Creatures moving in sync, click, drag. John turned to Naru. "Run, now." They ran, the tunnel stretched ahead forever. Rusted ladders, broken pipes. Glowing signs with letters that no longer worked. Then, light. Not red, not blue. White. Bright and clear, leaking from under a metal door marked Emergency Cargo Access. John slammed the keypad. Nothing. Locked. He pulled the plasma cutter from his bag and began to slice the panel. Behind them, the screech came again. Closer. The mother groaned. Naru held her tight, whispering something to her in their language. John cut the last wire. The door creaked open. Fresh air poured in. Cold, dry, real. He pushed Naru and his mother through, then slammed the door shut behind them. The hallway on the other side was long, empty, and lit. It looked clean, dusty but safe. John dropped to his knees, catching his breath. They had made it, or so he thought. A sound echoed behind them. Not claws, not scraping. Boots. Marching. Someone, or something, was waiting at the far end of the hall. John stood up slowly, shielding Naru and his mother once again. But this time it wasn't a creature. It was a man, wearing black armor, Human face, cold eyes. He pointed a scanner at them. Unauthorized life forms detected, he said in a robotic tone. Step away. From the aliens, John didn't move. Step away. John clenched his fists. We just escaped death, he growled. They're not the danger here. The soldier raised his weapon. I wasn't asking. Not welcome. Anymore. The gun pointed at John's chest didn't scare him, but the silence behind him did, because behind him stood a starving child and his dying mother. And this was how they were welcomed. The soldier's voice was flat. No warmth, no feeling. You brought alien fugitives into a restricted zone. You broke planetary law. John didn't move. His eyes didn't blink. She's sick, he said quietly. She's dying. They're not fugitives. They're survivors. The man didn't lower the weapon. Doesn't matter. They don't belong here. Orders are orders. John looked past the soldier. 2 more guards stood behind him, blocking the hallway. Black armor, cold faces, no help. Naru stepped forward. The boy was shaking, but his voice was strong. Please, just that one word. One small word from a child who had lost everything. The soldier paused, but only for a second. Then he clicked his weapon off safety. John stepped in front of the boy. Try it, he growled. Shoot me, but you'll have to carry her out yourself. Tension filled the air like smoke. One of the guards raised a communicator. HQ, this is Unit 9. We have a situation. Civilian interfering with alien detainment. Requesting backup. John raised, both hands slowly. I don't want to fight, I just want help for them. Give me 5 minutes, I have a ship, I can take them off-world. The guards didn't answer. Then, another voice came through the radio. Female, calm, older, Unit 9, stand by. Do not engage. The lead soldier looked annoyed but obeyed. A moment later, footsteps echoed from down the hall. A woman in a dark coat walked toward them. Her eyes sharp, her uniform cleaner than the others. High rank. She stopped in front of John and looked down at Naru. Where did you find them? Below, John replied. In the tunnels. Hiding. Starving. Running from something called the HFY. She blinked once. Slowly. I see. She looked at the guards. Lower your weapons. They hesitated, but obeyed. She turned back to John. We don't allow off-worlders to stay here without permission. I'm not asking them to stay, John said. I'm asking to save their lives. She studied him, then looked at the boy. And finally, the woman on the ground, barely breathing. A pause. Then she said, You get 1 chance. You lift off within the hour. After that, if you're still here, we shut you down. John nodded. No, trouble. She pointed to the far door. Docking Bay 6, go. John didn't wait. He scooped up the mother again, and Naru followed close behind. The guard stepped aside. As they moved toward the bay, Naru looked up at John. You saved us. John didn't smile. We're not safe yet. Behind them, the woman officer turned to her men. Follow them. Quietly. If they lead us to more, I want to know. A new home among the stars. The stars didn't feel the same anymore. From the pilot's seat, John watched them pass by. Cold, silent, endless. But tonight, they felt like they were watching. Like they had seen the boy. Like they had seen the mother. And now, they waited to see what John would do next. Behind him, in the small med bay of his ship, the alien woman slept. Her skin no longer pale. Her breathing, calm. The machines beeped slowly. She was healing. And Naru? The boy was staring out the window, eyes wide, full of wonder. And something else. Hope. John had seen a lot in the galaxy. War, greed, empty planets, cruel systems. He had stopped caring a long time ago. But that night in the tunnel, that boy, stealing food not for himself but for someone else, it reminded him that not all life is measured in laws or credits. Some of it is measured in kindness. The comms on the dash blinked. Unregistered vessel, said a voice. Identify destination. John clicked the mic. Unknown, he said. A pause. Repeat? John smiled faintly. I said unknown. We're just flying. Another pause. Copy that. Fly safe. He shut the comms. Naru stepped beside him, his eyes locked on the stars. Where are we going? The boy asked. John didn't know how to answer at first, then he said, somewhere your kind won't be hunted. Somewhere your mother can sleep without fear. Somewhere you can just be a kid. Naru blinked up at him. Is that place real? John looked out into the dark. It can be, if we build it. A light beeped on the console. Long-range scanner. A small planet in the distance. Lush. Green. Unregistered. John turned the ship toward it. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone, and somewhere deep inside the stars, something new was beginning, the end.